Okay, how to set up your LLC this year. There are 7 key steps that I want you to know about. We're going to talk about the states to register in, register agents, EIN numbers, naics codes, and a lot more today. But by the end of this, I want you to feel confident in setting up your LLC, knowing where to do it, how to do it, and when to do it. All right, so let's get into it. First, I want to address the elephant in the room. Okay, should you DIY or hire someone to help you set up this LLC? And the answer to hiring someone is actually no, don't do it. For most people, right, DIY works for simple cases, which is most businesses. All right, don't go out and hire someone to do it for most people. It's a waste of money. It takes 5 minutes, but you need to do it correctly. Okay. But there are people who should actually hire someone to set up their LLC for them. And that's for people where they have many partners, maybe they have investors, or maybe there's multiple states involved, right? Those more complex cases with more people, right? Those are the times where you might want to get some help to set up that LLC. But for most people, just DIY it, okay? Now, let's go into the 7 steps on how to actually do it for yourself. So the first step is to choose the right state, okay? Where you file impacts a lot of things: your taxes, your privacy, and your costs. Now, the default for most people is to file in your home state, okay? This is simple. It avoids extra fees. And once again, it's the best option for most people. Now, when should you file in a different state other than your home state? Well, it's when you want to keep your privacy, right? So people can't find out who you are, or you have many investors, all right? If that's the case, then you might want to look into Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, right? These are popular places for that privacy and for investors, okay? If you have investors in your LLC. All right, so step 2, you want to select and lock in your name, okay? So your LLC name must be unique, compliant, and available, right? That's the 3 criteria: unique, compliant, and available. So when you go to set this up, you must include LLC or Limited Liability Company in your name. Another thing to note is that you cannot copy another name in your state's database. All right, that's key. It has to be unique. It can be slightly different, right? But still unique. You can't just copy. And here's a pro tip. You want to check matching domains, search engines, and trademarks early to avoid those rebranding costs. Okay, that's going to be very important. You don't want to choose a name that you fall in love with and then later go and check the social media handles, the domains, right? Search engines, and find out someone is already dominating that exact name. Easy enough, right? Let's move on to step 3. This is appointing a registered agent. So your agent is basically your legal mailbox, right? So you don't want to overlook this. And Karan, what does that mean? Well, any mail, right, that comes from the government, very important documents, will be sent to that agent, all right, on file. And also all the spam, all the spam that comes with starting a business, starting an LLC, you'll see, that comes in the mail will be sent to this address, right? So it can be you, right? But if it is you and you choose to use your home address, then that home address will be public information. Okay, so you might want to avoid using your home address if you decide to be your own agent, right? But if you use a company, there are many services out there for registered agents. It's between $50 and $150 a year to do so. But if you go that route, it protects your privacy and it handles all official notices from the government, okay? And here's a novel insight. If you ever expand to different states with your LLC, one agent service can cover them all, okay? So that's just something to note. But say you want to be the agent, you don't want to hire or pay for another service to do it, then go ahead and get you a mailbox, right? I say UPS, USPS, so on and so forth. And then you can use that. You can use that address, right, for this purpose here. Okay. All right. So let's go into more about choosing your address here, right? So you want to choose a professional business address if you don't go that route with the agent. All right. So your address affects credibility, privacy, and funding. So once again, using your home address is public record, right? So it can lead to that spam email that I was discussing earlier. So once again, get a mailbox at UPS or USPS for this purpose, right? And lenders actually sometimes auto flag home addresses as higher risk, right? Because your home address might just show that you are less serious of a business, okay? And also another novel insight here is that some grants, right, and contracts require a non-residential address anyway. So save yourself the privacy, right? And save yourself the future headache with getting funding and dealing with other contract situations, and just get a mailbox somewhere else or use a registered agent. Okay. Now, let's go into the actual filing of this LLC, right? And this is basically you filing your articles of organization, all right, which is basically like the birth certificate of your LLC. So how do you do this? Well, you file with your state's Secretary of State. All right, this can be online. So you just go online, type in LLC in your state, right? And you'll see your state's website to actually create an LLC. All right, most people do this online. Now, there are some info that is actually required when you go to do this online. You're going to need your LLC name that you picked out, your address, your agent, and sometimes, if it's a multi-member LLC, the other members of the LLC, right? You're going to need their information as well. And then you just simply pay a fee, right? It's between $50 and $500, depending on your state. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how you set up an LLC, okay? All right, at least the filing part of it, that's how easy it is. And this is all someone is going to do when you go to pay them to do it. Takes 5 minutes. You can do it yourself, okay? Let's move on to step 5. Now, step number 5 is drafting an operating agreement. And skipping this step here is the number one future lawsuit trigger. Okay? Why? Because your operating agreement defines the ownership, the profit splits, and the decision making of your LLC, especially if you have other members in it. This is going to be huge. And even if you don't, it's huge. Okay. And this operating agreement is actually required in some states, right? But it's actually smart to do it in every state. All right. And here's another novel insight for you. Well, even solo LLCs benefit here, right? Because courts take your LLC more seriously. All right. So make sure you have your operating agreement. And I have a wonderful, amazing video on how to get and draft this operating agreement for free. Right. So I'll link that in the description for you. Check it out. Depending, it don't matter what state you're in, right? How many members you have, whether it's just you, it's a great way to do it for free. So I'll put the link in the description. Next up, step number 6 is applying for your EIN, right? So your EIN is your business's social security number, right? And this is completely free on irs.gov, right? So avoid paying people that charge you to set up your EIN. This takes 2 minutes. 2 minutes, right? Don't pay someone to do it. But your EIN is important. Why? Because you need it for taxes, your bank accounts, and for payroll, and for a lot of other things as well, right? But this is huge. So make sure you set up your EIN once your organization, right? Your articles of organization are filed with your state, right? And it's instant approval online in most cases, right? So not only is it easy, but you also get it instantly. All right, let's go on to step 6.5. We're not at 7 yet, but at 6.5. And this is one that is paramount. Do not miss this one, right? That is picking a strategic NAICS code. Okay, so your NAICS code shapes how banks and investors view you, right? So the NAICS code, when you go to set up your LLC, is the 6-digit code that defines your industry, right? It impacts loan approval, insurance rates, and eligibility for grants. Get this, you choose the wrong NAICS code, right? Even if it's the one that is most relevant to your business, it can affect you later on down the line. So make sure you realize this, right? Some codes are flagged high risk by lenders, right? So bars, adult services, trucking, real estate, right? While others get easier access to credit. Okay, so avoid those high risk industries. And here's a pro tip: if your business overlaps categories, choose the one that positions you for future funding. All right, don't choose real estate, choose property management, right? As an example. All right, let's move on to step number 7, which is opening a business bank account. So a clean bank account actually protects your liability. All right, so you never want to mix business and personal money. Never do this. Never do this. All right. So when you go to open that business bank account, you're going to want to bring 2 things: your articles of organization and your EIN letter, all right, for the bank. And some banks charge fees when you go to open this business bank account, but some are actually cheaper or completely free to do so. Okay. So that's step number 7, is open a business bank account. It's actually really easy. Don't be intimidated by it. Okay. All right. Now, step number 8. All right. I said it was 7. There's actually 8 here. All right. A bonus one. And that's maintaining ongoing compliance with your LLC. Right. So your LLC actually dies, RIP, if you skip renewals. All right. So there are actual annual or biannual reports required. Right. But that varies state to state to state. And the fee to do this is between $25 and $500, depending on your state. So if you miss that annual filing there, then you would incur late fees, loss of good standing, right? So when people actually go up to search your LLC because it is public record, they'll see that it's not active anymore. And then you even can get dissolution, right? And that is the state saying, hey, your LLC literally no longer exists. Okay? So make sure you maintain that annual filing and report. Now, let's look at some key deadlines and timing for your LLC. Okay? First thing you want to make sure of is your annual tax filings. So for single member LLCs, right, tax as a disregarded entity, you want to file this with your personal tax return, right? So that annual federal return, right? And state, that's going to be your Form 1040 plus your Schedule C. And you want to do this by April 15th. If you're a multi-member LLC, right, tax as a partnership, then you want to file Form 1065 by March 15th, right? The K1s go to the members. All right. If your LLC taxed as an S corp, then you would have filed Form 1120S by March 15th. And once again, those annual reports due by state. All right. All right. Those annual reports we just talked about. Now let's talk about optimization strategies for your LLC that actually pay off here, because small tweaks now prevent huge costs later down the line. So let's look at these. Once again, you want to dedicate a separate card, separate bank account for all expenses, right? That's bulletproof record keeping, helps you keep that veil, right? And your legal protection. You want to use a non-home mailbox for your privacy. We talked about that. If you're going to not have outside third-party registered agent. and you want to elect to be taxed as an S Corp after your LLC makes $50K net profit consistently on a yearly basis. And that would help you to save on self-employment taxes. This is a huge one, right? You hit that number, make the switch. Okay. Now let's talk about some mistakes that LLC owners make. Here are some common ones. All right. And most of these failures and mistakes are preventable. So number one, once again, using personal accounts, right, for your business, right? This destroys your liability protection. Another one, skipping your operating agreement. When you have partner disputes, right, or court, right, cases, and they look at your LLC and says, hey, show me your articles of organization and your operating agreement, and you don't have one, they're going to say, I don't think this is a real business, right? Protect yourself there. And then falling for an EIN scam that charge fees. It takes 2 minutes. You can go online and do it. It's effortless. All right, so let's clear up some common doubts and objections and fears that most people have around setting up this LLC. All right, so you can feel confident, right? Because you're not, trust me, if you have questions, you're not the only one with these questions. And if you don't see your question here, throw it in a comment and I'll answer it for you, okay? So question number one, can I use my home address? Yes, you can, but it goes public. I would advise against it. Do I need a lawyer? Well, only if you have partners or complex structures and investors. Okay. Can I delay my EIN? Can, but I wouldn't do it, right? You'll need it for banking and taxes, and you're going to want to do that as soon as you get this set up. And that's it. That's setting up your LLC. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments. If not, once again, I am Karan. It's been a blast, and I'll see you in the next video. Yeah, and I got a call on my iPad. Nice.